If you want a champion that can take you all the way, Leona is your girl. Whether you're starting your climb in silver or you're looking to break into diamond, I'm gonna try in this video to turn you from this into the Leona from the season 12 cinematic, crashing down from the sky, fucking 1v1ing a pantheon and dunking on people yourself. It's the Leona matchup guide you've all been waiting for, baby. Ah, Leona. What a wonderfully simple champion. Beating your enemies to death with an umbrella never felt so rewarding. But what makes her so good? I mean, she's such a simple champion. The answer, in my opinion, is crowd control. Everyone's looking at me going, well, duh. But what separates a good Leona from a bad Leona is how they use that crowd control, who they use it on, and also how quickly you see the engages. That is what makes or breaks our girl. In this video, I'm going to be going over some of the matchups I think are most important and also showing you some interactions you should know to get an edge over the enemy support. I'm going to stick timestamps in the description, and if I don't go over a champion, it's likely because it's a generic matchup, but you can drop a comment and I will reply with my thoughts on that matchup. First, I'm going to give you some general matchup tips, and we're going to start with the obvious one. Leona is a melee tank, so all inning is usually our goal, but that does not mean you can't take trades, and that's something that I see quite often is people just don't want to take short, quick trades on Leona. They can work in certain situations, but first you just have to ask yourself, can you run away after without getting CC'd or taking poke? Generally though, the lanes fall into a few categories. Number one, you survive until a power spike and then you bum rush them as hard as possible. Number two, you wait for your jungler to gank and you cry jungle diff and alt chat because the matchup is just really difficult. Number three, you spend as little time as possible bot lane and you go and terrorize the top lane. Here we go, Leona matchups you should learn, starting from the easiest with my boy Alistar. So number one thing is you can buffer your E if he combos you, and this is a generic tank versus tank matchup, right? Basically just whoever finds the all-in first and wins that all-in. Also, junglers matter quite a lot because as you can imagine, both of you champions, when you go in, yeah, you're probably not getting out very quick. Make sure you know what Alistar is running on runes. If he's running Glacial or Aftershock, it makes a big difference, or even Phase Rush if he's really crazy. Coming in next, we have Bard, and this matchup is really not that difficult, mainly because Bard isn't supposed to beat you in lane, but he won't try to. What he's gonna do is he's gonna be as physically annoying as possible level 1, stupid little meeps. Then he's going to throw all of his effort into screwing over your mid, your jungle, and your top. So what you really need to do is just survive until level 2, don't get poked out, and then make sure he can't roam. Next up, we got Blitzcrank. Now, this is a standard tank-tank matchup, but like, to be honest, the way Blitzcrank's play changes matchups quite drastically just because this guy's Q throws a lot of variables to the lane. If he misses his Q, he's basically a caster minion, and if he hits his Q, well, you better hope he hit you because 99% of the time, if he hits your AD carry, you just lose the fight. Generally, what you want to do is position in between Blitzcrank and your AD, face tank the hook, and then after Blitzcrank wastes his hook on you, you're going to be bum rushing Blitzcrank's AD carry. Take that guy down a peg. So next up, we have the slightly annoying matchups, but not too much of an issue. I put Amumu here. He's really not that big a deal, to be honest. After the nerfs to his Q mana cost, all you really got to do is bait this guy's Q out like once or twice in lane and you win. Next on the list, we got Lux. Again, this matchup is very similar to a lot of ranged matchups in Leona's repertoire. She basically bullies the crap out of you level 1 if you don't get bush control. However, Lux is actually not that strong level 1 compared to you. If you like flash on her, for example, she's extremely squishy with low base HP. So if you can get into like the middle brush of the lane, just be annoying, you could probably survive and maybe even pressure her at level 2. Just keep in mind, she's a poke champ, so figure out a way to get close to her. One piece of advice I can give you for all the future matchups I'm about to talk about, if you have Hex Flash and a squishy immobile champ does not have Flash, you probably win in that part. Keep that in mind, it's really important. Next up, Nami. So remember what I said about trading flashes? Yep, that again. And then, similar to most enchanters, she's a poke champion. She wants to kind of harass you, out-sustain you, but she's got absolutely ludicrously low base HP. So, you know, blow on her gently, she might fall over. But you do have to get in range of her safely. So one thing you have to keep in mind is she's going to probably take exhaust, or her AD carry will, especially in Leona lane. So what you need to do is make sure you don't blow everything when you're being exhausted. Next up, we got Rell. Pretty straightforward matchup, but Rell can do a couple of annoying things. Like, she doesn't do terribly against Leona, It's not really a threatening matchup, to be fair, but Rell's flash engage is really scary. And there's one thing you need to understand, which is Leona has no way of stopping a Rell engage. So be really careful about where you're standing when Rell has flash, and just keep in mind that she'll probably steal your stats and you'll be slightly squishier than you think you are. Coming in, we got the GOAT, and I don't mean the GOAT, I mean Soraka. With Soraka, again, she plays very similar to a lot of these enchanters who just kind of want to bully you level 1, but she's a lot weaker at actually winning 2v2s if you play the fights right. This goes without saying, but for any champion that heavily relies on healing, you should really be spamming Ignite on them in 2v2s. But keep in mind that if you don't have Ignite, it's okay to still all in if you have lethal. You just need to be a lot more careful. Next up is Zyra, and she's very much like every other mage matchup in that she's just bullying you and trying to keep you under tower. Her goal is to keep you as low HP as possible so that you don't want to all in her. Your goal is to flash on her ass and kill her before she can do that. Pretty straightforward goals in lane, but just keep in mind, if you get stuck under tower as a Zyra, you need to call your jungler or you need to all in. And final point is, be careful kamikazing into her when she's level 6, because she will drop everything on her and then just stand there and die for her queen and country. And you'll be chilling in like 7 plants, regretting your decision. Next up, we have the even matchups. I'm going to call them skill matchups, and all you really need to be looking for is the specific interactions which Leona can punish the enemy. And just keep in mind, it's vice versa as well. They can punish you if they understand the matchup more than you. So these skill matchups really are where League of Legends is played. This is where the fun stuff happens. All right, so first on my skill matchups is Braum, and again, it's not so much a skill matchup in that Braum can kill you. It's a skill matchup in that if you make a mistake, Braum will never allow you to make a play again. So the way you need to play this matchup is simple. Don't engage unless you are absolutely certain that you can kill Braum. And Braum is going to function much like a poke champ in a lot of cases. He's just going to chill, do nothing, and just spam Q. So get your happy feet on, dodge his Qs, try and maintain some bush control so that it's harder for him to hit Q. And also, if you push him under tower, you don't have to fight him. Just piss off and go somewhere else. You're a better roamer than he is. Next up is Karma. And again, this might come as a shock to some people, but she is a very skill-based matchup. Why? Because again, if you burn her flash, well, she's not going to do much. She functions a lot like a lot of enchanters on this list, where she's just spamming spells at you. You're playing dodgeball in the middle of the lane, trying to dodge all of her crap. And then every now and then, you know, you can all in her because she overextends. Well, with Karma, it's a little scarier because she's longer range in that she can hit her alt Q from a gazillion miles away, and you have to just deal with it. Essentially, your windows are in between her ultimate, but just keep in mind, she's going to try and keep you under tower. It is really important that you do not lose HP, just like in every enchanter and mage matchup I've talked about. All right, next up is a matchup I've probably played a bajillion times. That is Nautilus. Leona Nautilus is a really interesting matchup because both champions can kind of counter engage on each other. Both champions also don't necessarily want to be the first in. Now, why is that? Because the first person to pop Aftershock usually has the most to lose. When you go in on Leona from a distance, your Aftershock instantly gets popped and then it falls off in the middle of the fight. Whereas the person who counter engages actually has Aftershock when they're being attacked. The person who engages first generally loses. It's not always the case, but it's probably better for you to just chill and push Nautilus under tower if possible and control brushes. Next up, we have Rakan. I don't have a tremendous amount to talk about, but Leona used to be a soft counter with Rakan, and it's pretty straightforward. Rakan can't really stop Leona from doing what she wants to do, but the same goes for Leona. Leona can't necessarily keep Rakan locked down long enough because most Rakans build tenacity, and they'll also build items like Merc Treads. Rakan is just a giant slippery little rat. All right, next up we have Seraphine. So this is the start of a few champions where I'm gonna say the red word, scaling. She outscales you giga hard. Like, you're gonna feel so tiny and insignificant after she hits 3 items, I'm telling you. So one thing you have to understand is you need to snowball. I need to snowball quickly. The way you do that is generally you have a good plan and you have one lane you want to play towards and you know how to punish. One additional point about Seraphine: don't engage in a straight line against Seraphine because she's gonna and your whole team is gonna get hit. Next up, we have Seraphine again. So very similar to Seraphine. Seraphine, this matchup is basically the same as Seraphine. What you want to do in the Seraphine lane is don't let Seraphine scale. So the goal of not letting Seraphine scale is to try and, you know, snowball, keep her under tower, make sure that Seraphine can't do anything to help her allies, because once Seraphine gets items, well, the game becomes very hard to play against Seraphine. We have Froggo. So with Froggo, you really want to be careful about engaging unnecessarily. Now, the whole thing about Tahm Kench is that he wants to protect his AD carry, but he's actually been changed slightly. So his little eat spell where he keeps his AD carry safe for a few seconds has been moved to his ult. Until Level 6, he actually can't do what he used to do back in olden days of Froggo time. So what you need to do in this matchup is make sure that you really do have enough follow-up damage to take out his AD carry. And then final point about this matchup is Frogman is giga slow, and he's very, very bad at countering roams because he's so slow on the map. So just keep that in mind. Next up, we have gems.
Gems are truly outrageous.
So with gems, you really want to be focused on roaming. Now, the reason I say that is because he outscales you. For some reason, he's sided with Seraphine, and I'm not sure why, but he late game is going to outdo you in team fights simply because when you go in and you telegraph your engage, he's going to mash his face into the R button, and for about 3.5 seconds, you're just going to be watching your team get ran down. So better gameplay strategy for Taric is to push him under tower and then roam around. All right, next up, we have another fan favorite. We have Cat. Now, I'm going to put this really simply. You just need to crush her as quickly as possible. As with every other annoying ass enchanter on this list, their goal is simply just to do nothing and get her items. So she's just going to be spamming Q in lane, Astra chilling. What you need to do is you need to phone a friend, call your mid laner, call your top laner, call your jungler, you know, bribe them if you have to, get them to dive Cat. And if they can't dive Cat, there is an alternative, which is simply to just leave. All right, so these are the champions I've kind of put in the more difficult tier. You do need to keep in mind that you can always win these matchups. And, you know, I just want to say that before someone in the comments is like, Raisins, I always beat this champ. Bro, I know. So first one in this tier is Galio. So personally, this one is a very annoying matchup for one reason, and that is his ultimate. He's basically just looking to relax, wait for you to do something, and then counter engage. He's an excellent counter engager. But what you really want to be looking for in this matchup is roams. You want to outplay him with your brain. So my recommendation is to make sure you don't overextend. Try and bait out Galio ult, and then as soon as Galio ult is down, he becomes a much weaker champion, and you should try and roam off those cooldowns and punish him where he can't help. All right, next up we have Lulu. Oh boy. Okay, so what do I have to say about Lulu? Well, aside from Riot, please delete this champ, what I would have to say about Lulu is she just turbo hard outscales you. And the lower elo you go, the worse it gets, because people can't play around Lulu properly in lower elos because you have to chain CC her carries. So what you really need to understand is you're looking for an engage that is decisive and that crushes the little pixie into the ground before she can say anything, because if you don't get away with that, you might as well FF. I'll be honest. Next up, we have Morgana. Now, I don't know if this is a controversial opinion. I only put her up here because in lower levels and on like the stat websites, everyone seems to complain about the Morgana matchup. To be frank, I never see Morgana played in support in high elo, and there's one reason for that. She has absolutely ridiculously long cooldowns. So what you do in high elo is you punish her for a cooldown, and she's going to have to burn her spell shield, and then I'm just going to do that again in 8 seconds. She's not that strong a support higher up you go, but for people who are struggling in this matchup, the simple remedy is cooldown management. With Pyke, my theory that a lot of Leonas are making mistakes into is because Pyke snowballs in lower levels because there's so many random fights and the games drag on for a while. And if Pyke can join 1 billion fights and use his ult, well, he is going to become the richest human being in the world. You're gonna have Jeff Bezos running around. So what you really need to do in this matchup is you need to make sure that you're not just taking every single random ass fight. Your fights need to be more decisive. They need to be more clean. And don't give Pyke a window to R. Make sure you have flash so that you can flash Pyke R. All right, next up we have the big boy Thresh. Oh boy, is this a good matchup. Thresh versus Leona is an absolute classic when it comes to support matchups. If you have played either end of this matchup, you'll know how fun it can be. So to put it in a very simple couple sentences, Thresh is going to try to flay Leona whenever Leona goes in. Leona wants to try to get to Thresh without Thresh doing that. It's that simple. However, this leads to some super fun mind games, stuff where Thresh can get baited into Eing, or Leona can intentionally miss her E, or Leona can use flash to gap close. Another thing is once you hit 6 as Leona, stop using your E to blindly engage if you don't have to. You can engage with your R. All right, so I have put 2 champions in my I really hate these matchups tier for Leona. It's really a very low number because frankly, Leona is such a powerful champ that there's not that much that can stop her in her tracks if you know where to go on the map. If you roam properly on this champ, none of this stuff matters. All right, so First up is Janna. So with Janna, I'm going to keep this nice, short, and simple. She counters you because she can stop you from engaging. That's a given, and if anyone has played Leona, you know this. However, how do you get around that? What you need to understand is this is one of Leona's hardest matchups, and you need to be creative. And be creative by doing things like, I can give you some suggestions. Don't copy everything, but you know, stand in brushes, use your Hex Slash, use pink wards deep in the jungle area so you can kind of set up really annoying roams and you can track where Janna goes because she gets around the map a little faster than you do. Make sure you use your R on Janna so that she can't deny you and force her flash. Another thing you can do is you can simply wait for Janna to do something, because if your team is winning and Janna's team has no engage, you might be okay to just chill and just be defensive Leona. Play back and wait for the enemy to try and do something. That is an option. You don't always have to engage into a Janna. Final one, it's Zilean. What do I have to say about this matchup? Oh boy, I don't even have time to talk about this. Get it? Anyway, point being, if you don't beat Zilean pre 20 minutes and the game is close to over, chances are you're just gonna lose. He has a kit which completely shuts down champions like Leona who want to blow up one target. So one piece of advice I can give is punish him in lane, set up dives with your mid jungle, and take dragons. Try to snowball drakes and hope that you have a good soul, because if you have a bad Drake soul and you don't really have any way of pushing towers against a Zilean, I hate to break it to you, but the game's going to be pretty difficult. By no means unwinnable, but it's probably going to be really annoying. My advice for Leona Zilean matchup is just get good and win early. Not kidding. Well, that was my Leona matchup guide. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, you're probably going to love my Leona tips and tricks guide, and you should really be clicking on that right now. I don't know what you're doing. Go click on that video right now. Go. And if you have another matchup you want me to talk about, drop it in the comments. I will try and get to it. Other than that, I hope you do well, fellow Leona lovers. Enjoy slapping people with your umbrellas, and good luck in solo queue. I'll catch you guys in the next one.